early game clear if you can find Volcanic Potion, a Doomsayer, Frostbolt, anything to shut down the early game Murloc synergies. And then of course, Kazakus is going to be absolutely massive. You have Blizzard and Flame Strike in the late game. So this Mage deck absolutely can get the job done, but it's going to need to get past those early turns first.
It is indeed, and what a few early turns we have here for Tiddler. Obviously, LVG, given that they are on the coin, have the option to go coin into hero power to kill off this Grimscale Chum, but I doubt that is going to be the line of play, given that they have the Babbling Book to get things going, which means Tiddler could get off to an incredibly explosive start.
Yeah, this is just about as good as it can get. The Tidecaller or Vilefin would be maybe a little bit preferable to the Grimscale Chum on one, but now it's just about as good as it can get.
Yep, I think when the Murloc Paladin deck was first theorized shortly after Ungoro's release, people were saying, you know, maybe it doesn't have what it takes because Murlocs hadn't really been that good before then. But they were saying if you can get, you know, sure, if you can get Vilefin into Rock Portal into a 3-drop Murloc as well, then all of a sudden you're looking in a fantastic spot to be able to take any game. And Tiddler does indeed throw down the slightly higher health Murloc here so that he's not vulnerable to Ping or Babbling Book instead. This is a great start for him.
Yep, I like this a lot. You lose that buff from the Chum, but you gain so much resilience with this Vilefin.
And now, some pretty good options for LVG, however, though. The Volcanic Potion is one of the best cards in the matchup, as long as there isn't a health buff on the Murlocs from something like Gentle Megasaur or the 3-drop we see in hand, which is going to do a fantastic job of bringing all of these Murlocs out of range of the Volcanic Potion, which can just be so devastating to this deck in particular.
So LVGE, as we thought, is forced to play cleanup in the early turns, and Tiddler needs to keep pushing his initiative as much as he possibly can. Going to be looking for that strong mid-game, so Gentle Megasaurs, Cobalt Scalebanes, Bone Mares later on.
And I think I like this as well from Tiddler, actually taking it a little bit slower. Could potentially say he is leaving himself vulnerable to cards like this Volcanic Potion that could come down. But the thing is, because he fit into hero power anyway, that's kind of free value that he's generating by going for this line of play. And now all of a sudden, he can speed up again. He can go for the double Murloc. He's pushing a load of damage. And now that he's seen that single copy of Volcanic Potion, he's a lot less afraid of any AoE.
I think this is the first time I've actually seen the Cold Light come down in recent memory and be effective.
Yeah.
It is not a necessary tool in any Paladin decks, Murloc Paladin specifically, but when you do choose to run it, you're going for increased early resilience at the risk of losing some mid-game and late-game potential.
That's right. It's more about securing the early game rather than applying extra damage, which means it's kind of in a weird spot because it's best against board-centric decks like Rogue, because you can give yourself higher health totals to take preferential trades. But against Rogue, you're very often going to be behind on board, which is why we often see it not included in these Murloc Paladin decks, especially when you're trying to make room for the Corpse Taker package. But it still manages to find a way for Tiddler on Team Celestial. Maybe they think because of the fairly recent nerf to War Leader, it's worth it for that slight extra health.
Need to find the resilience somewhere. This is certainly a great place to get it, but a Kazakus on 4 and a Potion on 5. If LVGE has managed to find that AoE, he's going to have a phenomenal tool to dismantle this Murloc board.
Yeah, he is indeed, and Tiddler is going to be thinking of that as priority number 1. He wants to keep this Seer, the Cold Light Seer, as you were saying, up above the crucial 4 health total. But it seems to me there that it is summon a 5/5, draw 2 cards.
Yes, it is summon a 5/5 demon, draw 2 cards. So unfortunately, nothing that interacts immediately with the board. No deal 4 to all, no deal 5 damage. It will get LVGE closer to finding those removal resources, and he does still have a Meteor in hand. So he has reasonable stall tactics available right now, but I do have to think that this wasn't his ideal potion. Still quite good, though.
It's not bad. I mean, getting Kazakas on curve, you can never really be too upset, especially because there's still powerful clear options like, hey, coin into Meteor that we see right now available for LVG. Good positioning, it's worth saying as well from Tiddler. Doesn't mean that there's a complete clear on the 3 health Murlocs if the Meteor is what LVG is going towards. And to be honest, if he's looking for the coin to come down, I don't see any way he'd go with anything else. But at the same time, do you think he's maybe being overly cautious by going for this Meteor now?
It's tough to say. There is a lot of utility in this mage deck, more so than we would see in a traditional burn mage. You have Flame Strike, you have Polymorph.
That's true.
So I would personally go for the Meteor here, just because if Megasaur were to come down alongside a hero power, then potentially it's just too late. And you don't have any other sources of removal in hand right now. So I think this was perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's worth getting it out of the way because like we saw from Orange against the Shaman deck earlier, if you take away their board they have in play, Murloc decks inherently need stuff to be on the board in order to get a huge amount of damage. There's effectively no burst damage at all outside of weapons in the Paladin deck.
But this Corpse Taker has now also landed with Wind Fury and Divine Shield. Tiddler's deck looking very, very strong, even though this is not my preferred Murloc Paladin build. It is doing what it is meant to do.
Oh, absolutely. And if something like a Spike Ridge Steed or Blessing of Kings were picked up, that's lethal on the spot with the Wind Fury from the Corpse Taker. Absolutely absurd amounts of damage.
It has incredible aggressive potential, but it also has a reasonable failure rate.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you draw your Storm Watcher one too many times, and you're pretty turned off by this deck.
Yeah, it's interesting because on ladder, that can often be the case that it's not that bad when you draw Stormwatcher because there's so many priests in play. And it's not actually that bad of a minion in its own right against priest because it's something that will probably stick around and then you can throw a buff onto it to deliver ridiculous amounts of damage. But we do see LVG here in the end going for the Kazakus potion while he's not under...
It's just 14 damage on board.
Much pressure? Yeah, I mean, what
this
else can he
Megasaur
possibly
just needs
do though?
Wind Fury, +1/+1, +3 attack, game's over.
Let's see what he gets.
Yep.
That's it, this game. And so Tiddler manages to take game number 1 on turn 7. Maybe that was just from LVG. If he was going to go for coin into Meteor on the last turn, maybe he should have just gone with the potion on the last turn. Or if he was going to go for coin into Meteor, maybe he should have gone with Glyph on this turn. Try and find something like a Frost Nova, an Ice Block, something to stop him from dying from the ridiculous aggression coming forward from Tiddler.
Yeah, he was going to turn 7 next turn, so if you play the Kazakus potion, potentially you draw into Blizzard or Flame Strike, but even still, you're just far too far behind there for that play to work out. And it just so happened that Tiddler was able to find the lethal on the top of the deck, but he likely would have had it the turn after anyway. So game number 1 over to Team Celestial. That Paladin deck looking very, very well oiled. It pretty much went off without a hitch.
It did indeed. And looking at what LF have to counteract that, there's a few options. They have had their Rogue banned, which is probably the main source you're going to because it's nice against the Paladin, and it also has great sweep potential in later stages of the game. But for LF, they do have some other anti-aggro options. We could see the Warlock coming down. It is another Kazakus deck from them, so again, inherently inconsistent in a lot of ways. But maybe they think it's worth it because if you can hit those really powerful AoE clears like Defile and Hellfire, you can just make quick work of anything that comes from the Paladin.
Yeah, the Warlock or the Warrior, I think, would make sense here. And since Levichuk has experience on the Warrior, there you go. We are going to be seeing this Taunt Warrior build, which does seem well positioned to take out Murloc Paladin if it gets the right clears in combination. But then again, we've seen Team Celestial queuing Paladin intentionally up against this Warrior to try to get the win that way. So, you know, maybe we're just not exactly in agreement about who's favored in this one.
Yeah, I don't think this is a particularly strong of a counter from Lucky Future. Not necessarily saying it's the wrong pick, but at the same time, I probably would have just gone with the Murloc Paladin. It is this kind of, I suppose, Chinese variant of the deck that we're seeing, where it is much more aggressive with the Divine Favor thrown into there as well, with the Bluegill Warriors. and maybe that can't stand up against the value from a deck that's running Corpse Takers and Spike-Ridge Steeds, but maybe you can just smork them down in the early game to the point where those cards don't matter.
The thing is, if you run a Divine Favor and you're up against another tempo deck, you're never going to get any value from that card.
That's true.
So it just seems like in the battle of the slightly different than usual Murloc Paladin decks, that deck is just even worse in this situation. So it is going to be the Warrior, and I do think you need to hold on to the quest. There's a lot of late game value from the Paladin, but then again, it can be kind of tough to get those targeted clears later on because the Paladin does just have the hero power.
Yeah, that's right, and that is why the quest does have to be kept here from Lovely Chook. But in a way, Celestial's deck kind of preys upon the quest being kept more so than other Murloc Paladin decks we've seen, because of the fact that you can get more explosive Murloc starts than usual, with the Seers being in the deck as well as Corpse Taker into some kind of a buff. Maybe it's just too much damage coming forward in the early turns of the game. But having said that, Lovely Chook does have a great way to counteract early Murlocs with Slam, Ghoul, and Bloodrazor taking out the majority of what could be thrown down from Celestial.
Yeah, and importantly enough, Celestial has nothing to throw down.
Yep.
They have missed turn 1 and turn 2, and now Cold Light Seer is looking more like the card that I've come to know it as. It's just not good when you don't have the minions to put down before it. This is just a really awkward start for Tiddler.
Yeah, when you get 2 Grimscale Chums and it brings it up to a 3-mana 4/5, then it feels a bit more juicy. But here, you're right, it's just very much under the power curve in terms of what it's doing on this board. None of the early Murlocs being hit. But at the same time, Tiddler does have very strong turns 7 and 8. So if he can pull at least, maybe not too far ahead on board, but at least even on board for the moment, he might be able to capitalize on that with turn 7 Bone Mare and turn 8 Tyrion.
This is the way that he would do it. Put the Cold Light out this turn, Murloc War Leader next turn can clear off the Armor Smith. You could also accomplish that with the Rallying Blade.
I think I like going for the Slam here. By going for this play of Coin into Seer, it's very much to me indicating that a Murloc War Leader will probably be coming down on the following turn to make clean work of this Armor Smith. This also sets up perfectly into a Blood Razor to take that out.
Well, the War Leader is an option, but with Blood Razor netted for turn 4, it does seem to be a bit too easily countered, so I would expect the Rallying Blade to come down this turn. But then Tiddler's put himself in the awkward position, you know, unintentionally, of he has nothing to set up for the Blessing of Kings because nothing has stuck around, but that's just, unfortunately, the consequence of missing turn 1 and turn 2.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also, it's kind of almost too good for Lovely Chook in this scenario because, you know, he doesn't have anything to get the Battle Cry on the Blood Razor off of, which he would really like to throw down on a minion, maybe take out a War Leader, something like that to get a bit more value out of this weapon. And that is why he's just going to be hero power passing.
It's so rare that you see the Warrior have this much leeway in this matchup. Like we were saying before this game started, that it's not as good for the Warrior as, you know, we and Lucky Future think. Because the Paladin can put on so much pressure in the early turns that it really does demand a lot from the Warrior to be able to deal with it. But when the Paladin misses the early curve, then it's a lot easier.
Yeah. However, this must be kind of scary for Lovely Chook, because if your opponent throws down this slow of a hand in the early game, they're going to be following up, most likely, with some very powerful plays in the next few turns. So if things like Spike-Ridge Steed, Tyrion, and Bone Mare are what's on Lovely Chook's mind, I think he's going about it the right way, keeping it nice and slow, maybe setting up for a Dirty Rat Brawl or Blood Razor Execute.
Tiddler going to use as much of his mana as he possibly can this turn. Because Lovely Chook didn't play the Blood Razor last turn, maybe Tiddler can assume that he does not have it. But I think more realistically would be that Lovely Chook just didn't play it because nothing would activate the Battle Cry on it. But the Alley Armor Smith off the top is perfect for the mana that Lovely Chook has Stormwatcher.
This is obviously the downside of running the Corpse Taker package in your
Yeah,
deck.
I mean, this is the way that this deck feels to me most of the time. Just really lackluster.
I definitely agree, especially when you see certain players only going for one Stormwatcher in the deck. It's a pretty, full list already in the Murloc Paladin, especially when you're making room for cards like Wickerflame Burn Bristle, which isn't unanimous, cards like Cold Light Seer, 2 of them, which is far from unanimous in these lists as well. It's tough to make room for that, and you have to start cutting cards like Curator and Scalebane, which I think may have been cut from this list just to make room.
Yeah, I would definitely think there's no Scalebanes, no Curator in this, because you also have the Grimscale Chums. But Cobalt Scalebane just seems like such a strong card. You're really sacrificing game against other control decks when you're taking that card out of your list. You're shoring up your early game maybe a little bit, but suddenly one bad draw, one Grimscale Chum when there's no Murloc in hand, one Seer when you don't have a board, and now you're left with a bunch of pieces that just don't fit together. It's a puzzle, but you've lost like one of your corners.
Right.
And now you can't finish it.
I hate that. That would always happen with my family. There's just one piece that ends up being eaten by the dog.
Oh.
Yeah.
My family just didn't do puzzles.
Love it.
It's not a super common American pastime.
Really?
Yeah.
Us English are so boring, we could do puzzles every day of the week.
I mean, this time of year, like, Hallmark movies, I guess.
What movies?
Hallmark movies?
Is that a shop?
No, it's like, oh wow. It's a TV channel, and they have essentially cornered the market on cheesy holiday romance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like Love Actually, one might say, or The Holiday.
Yes, but super worse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's saying something.
Yeah, they're not good.
Okay.
But
I'll keep an
they're
eye out.
fun. But they're not good. But this is
fun.
the
and
opposite of a fun holiday romance for Tiddler. This is a breakup on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Actually, things are looking a little bit better now.
Yeah,
I take it back.
I think this is Act 3. There might be a teary-eyed revival of the 2 star-crossed lovers. Maybe.
Blood Razor into the... Okay, well...
Yeah, it's not going great for him. It's kind of up and down. But the thing is, if he's going to go for a strong Murloc start, if that gets shut down, that's okay if you have the follow-up of powerful plays on turn 7 and 8. And actually, because of the Storm Guardian, Stormwatcher, it does allow him to go 7 and 8, even though he has nothing on board for the Bone Mare.
That's true. You can go Stormwatcher into Bone Mare or Stormwatcher into Tyrion. Hope that Lovely Chook doesn't have that Execute in hand, and then suddenly your Stormwatcher represents 8 damage a turn, or 16 damage a turn.
You're forgetting
Holy
the
cow,
best
that
bit.
adds up.
Yeah, it adds up very, very quickly indeed. And we will get to see now if there are 2 Stormwatchers in the deck, which
No.
there aren't. So Tiddler going for an equally mana-efficient play, but to be honest, with what seems to me to be much less upside, he's afraid of Execute, I guess, obviously.
Yes.
But if an Execute gets drawn out here, it's not that bad for him. He can follow up with Tyrion, which is a very powerful play onto the board.
Then you can even try and stick that Bone Mare onto the Tyrion.
Ooh.
If that gets an attack through, then Tyrion dies, then you have Ashbringer.
Yeah. But
This just seems... It seems like a timid play. It's very scared.
it's a timid play, but I can still see the reasoning, all things considered. Just going for Stormwatcher later on down the line when more removal has been picked up maybe allows for the possibility of Bone Mare hitting it almost 100%.
Yeah, well, this also just gives you a higher chance of sticking Bone Mare this turn if Tiddler wants it. Which, I mean, it's the only way he can clear off the Primordial Drake this turn, but the Tyrion is mana efficient, would probably allow for a clear on the Drake next turn.
So are you just going Tyrion here? If you're Tiddler, is it worth just getting the most powerful minion on the board right now?
I suppose you're worried a little bit about second Ghoul, second Drake, second Blood Razor. But even if you Bone Mare and attack in, 1 point of Whirlwind damage kills that minion. You do want to keep your board small, play around Brawl.
That's true. But we could have seen the Tyrion then attack in with one of the minions, maybe even 2.
That's a tough call.
It is a tough call. All things considered, I think this does actually work out okay because you kind of want to guarantee you hit something good with the Divine Shield of Tyrion, and therefore leaving yourself open to a Whirlwind effect when there's already 1 health minions on the board might be a little bit too scary. But it's been, to be honest, debatable plays throughout from Celestial, and that's mostly because Tiddler's been presented with some very difficult decisions at the later stages of the game, but I think a lot of players would argue for other lines of play.
Nothing has been very straightforward. And I like that. Especially in a tournament of this caliber. I like decks where the plays are not immediately straightforward, but Dirty Rat pulling a Tyrion, that's pretty good.
That's true, and this is actually another thing to point out about Tiddler's play. He's played strong Battle Cry minions over the last couple of turns, rather than minions with static effects like Wind Fury or Death Rattles, meaning he is less vulnerable to Dirty Rat, potentially pulling out, if it had gone for the Tyrion on the last turn and Dirty Rat pulls out the Bone Mare, that's quite a lot worse for Tiddler.
That's true. Pretty much every Taunt Warrior deck has 2 copies of Dirty Rat in it right now. So really just hedging his bets a little bit, you know, a little bit less weak to Whirlwind effects, a little bit better against Dirty Rat, kind of weak to Execute, but overall worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it did indeed. And so, going into the next few turns, to be honest, I don't know. I'm not actually sure who I peg as particularly ahead here, because the thing is, Lovely Chuke, if he gets 1 more taunt, he has the ability to complete the quest, and if he can do that soon, I think he just wins. But if he can't, there's a good amount of stuff on the board in hand for Tiddler at the moment. But because I think he's very possibly omitting Curator in this list to make room for his other stuff, he might not be able to catch up.
No, I do think he's going to be limited to that 1 draw per turn. And though it's going to take a couple of turns for Lovely Chuke to get to quest completion, I would tend to think that he is still very ahead here. Especially with that Brawl. Like, his ability to just remove this board and Tiddler's lack of follow-up just seems like the Warrior's in a pretty good spot.
Especially as the poison is picked for Tiddler, a very hopeful pick, an ambitious pick, which I can very much respect. I like plays that have big upside with a bit of risk attached to them. But he is going to be going for the perfect play of Primordial Drake here. Even attacking in second is Lovely Chuke, which is perfectly playing around the secrets of Noble Sacrifice, which means, okay, there's another go of to get a good minion back with a second getaway Kodo that's picked up off the Hydrologist, but it's a lot better for Lovely Chuke that there's not a second Tyrion to deal with.
You can get a good minion, but your best minion is gone.
Yeah.
And now you need to throw an Ashbringer Swing and the Megasaur in. Lovely Chuke. Finish the quest with just 1 more taunt draw. I don't know. It just looks like Tiddler's resources are too finite right now.
I think you're right.
And especially after the second Brawl's been picked up by Lovely Chuke, I don't think Tiddler can stick a board.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. I'm trying to find the scenarios in which Tiddler comes back. You know, the Finger isn't that bad at all, and this board at the moment is not too weak to the Brawl because there's only 2 minions available. But the thing is, now with that pickup of yet another Stonehill Defender, there can be such a quick quest completion for Lovely Chuke. You can just throw down the cheapest taunts available to him, like Pompous Thespian here, whatever. You can just throw it down in combination with the other Stonehill Defender. And then on the very next turn, you can complete the quest, or you can equip the Sulfuras, fire off a hero power, and just start killing your opponent really, really quickly.
I mean, the Stormwatcher on this board is very good. It's not immediately challenged by anything. It doesn't die on board. So Tiddler, if he picks up, a Spikeridge Steed, for instance, or a Blessing of Kings, then this could represent a lot of damage and be out of range of the Die Insect hero power shots. So, I mean, it is still possible that this sort of last-ditch effort of the Stormwatcher does make some magic happen. It's just really, really unlikely now, especially since Sulfuras is going to be active next turn.
Yeah, it has to be Spikeridge Steed basically right now to be able to activate this incredibly powerful Stormwatcher. But, you know, like you were saying, even then there's Brawl, there's Sulfuras with the hero power. I just don't think it comes together for Celestial, especially as Tiddler just picks up another Stormwatcher, which will only have the effect I believe, of Wicker Flame now with Taunt, Divine Shield, and Lifesteal, which just is not getting the job done. He doesn't care about his health right now. He just needs to break through. Yep,
only the one Stormwatcher in the deck. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of this. You draw in the wrong order, and that's why this version of the deck was very popular for a while, but has significantly fallen out of favor.
And now with Finja on the board, it's all in from Tiddler, but to be honest, he has to smell that there's a brawl in his opponent's hand. There's cards that have been there for so long now. The one on the left been there since pretty much the start of the game, and so Lovely Chook, I mean, probably should have gone with the other one because that's more likely to be a brawl, but it doesn't really matter at this point. There's no way Tiddler can use that information to his advantage, as what is the best minion for Lovely Chook survives. But even then, there's still just sleep with the fishes if you want, but probably just equip the weapon and hero power. Just start slamming. Yeah,
even if the hit goes onto the Divine Shield, you can clear off the Corpse Taker with the weapon. Then you take, what, 8 damage from Stormwatcher. At worst, Tiddler top decks Blessing of Kings, you take 16.
Yeah.
Kill it next turn, you're still fine.
You're still absolutely fine. You are correct. Especially as you have more taunts in hand in the Pompous Thespian and in deck to combat against a buffed up Storm Watcher.
Alright, but the Storm Watcher living is the best case scenario for Tiddler. A Spike Ridge Steed would not put it out of hero power range, but that's just about the worst draw in the deck. And I think probably got to call it here.
I think you're right. The chum is no chum of Celestial in this situation, as it is, as you said, the worst single minion that could be top deck. It's just going to be, I don't know, it could just be attacking Fish's hero power and then you win the game. Like, there's pretty much nothing that can be done to bring this back for Celestial in this situation, which is unfortunate because this should be a decent deck to combat against what the Taunt Warrior can throw forward. But I feel like even though there was a strong attempt at an aggressive push in the early game, it didn't come together, and therefore because of the slightly weaker late game in this Paladin deck from Celestial, it was just the worst of both worlds.
I would have even been fine with that second brawl here. Yeah, it would have been a little bit too lucrative of usage, but start throwing fireballs at face, you're going to win the game a little bit sooner, but you're going to win the game anyway, so might as well play it safe. And Tiddler really should just, he should know that this is over.
Yeah, he's giving it all he's got, Captain, but unfortunately it's not working out. Oh, sorry?
Giving it all I've got.
Yeah, exactly. He's a...
It's not enough.
I'm a Hearthstone player, not a miracle worker.
Any opportunity I can have to imitate your accent poorly, I will take it.
That was a poor imitation of a poor imitation of a Scottish accent, so well played.
Taking that 4 levels deep. All right, just going through the motions here. So looking forward now, Lucky Future will be on this Taunt Warrior deck. How does Celestial want to try to counter this? We saw Zixo with a 3-0 sweep with the Taunt Warrior. This deck has high potential. It's very potent, but I'm thinking we're going aggressive.
Well, Cora, looking at what there is available for Celestial, I think the best counter would probably be their Quest Mage, to be honest. It seems like it's got a really good job of taking out the warrior before they complete their quest, only really leaving yourself vulnerable to Dirty Rats. But then the problem is you have to win 2 games here to take the series, and Quest Mage is one of the most counterable decks in reaction to if it beats the Taunt Warrior. So like you're saying, I wouldn't be too surprised if we do see something like the Rogue coming down here for Celestial. It's got a great chance of just running over the Taunt Warrior in the early game or outvaluing them in the mid stages of the game.
Well, now that it's Mitsuhide who will be playing next, I would think maybe we'll be seeing Warlock. But I do agree with that Quest Mage prediction. And the thing is, yes, Quest Mage is easily countered, but Celestial won game number 1.
That's true.
So even if the Quest Mage wins here, Lucky Future counters it, Celestial has game number 5. They have the deck choice. They have that edge. So I would not mind the Quest Mage pick here.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, to be honest, especially as we saw Planet Odd picking it quite early on in the last series. But you are correct in your assumption of Zoo. It has the double benefit of being, well, I suppose triple benefit. It's pretty good in this matchup. It's got nice sweeping potential, and we already see 30 out of 30 cards. So going into the rest of the tournament, they will not be revealing any extra information, which is kind of important for them because they have now revealed 7 of their 9 classes throughout the tournament. So a lot of information already shown, and they're going to be wanting to conceal every secret they have left.
Yeah, the priest not been revealed, but we can probably peg that as a Rozakis priest. So not a lot really remaining that Celestial can actually keep secret. But I do like this Warlock pick. It has significantly more mid and late game than, you know, Zoo Warlocks of the olden days.
Right.
And it is just about as equally as aggressive as Rogue in the early game. So put as much pressure on the Warrior as you possibly can. Maybe it's not a guaranteed win like Quest Mage almost would be.
Yeah.
But you're giving yourself a better chance to just win 2 in a row.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially as these decks, like you're saying, it's got less aggressive in the early game than we saw in the Zoo decks of old, especially because basically all aggressive decks at the moment are do whatever your class lets you do in the early game, and then go 5-drop Cairn, Bonemare, Lich King. That seems to be what all the aggressive tempo-based decks are doing now, which, as you said, allows them fantastic late-game potential against decks like Taunt Warrior, Control Mage, or Control Warlock.
The aggressive decks that are prominent in the meta right now are not the aggressive decks that I'm used to from Hearthstone,
That's right? Yeah.
Like, when I think aggressive decks, I still think Old Face Hunter, Pirate Warrior, like Aggro Druid. Like these, we call these aggressive decks because they're as aggressive as the meta gets right now, but they're really more mid-range style decks. Like they're not aggressive decks, really.
They're aggressive decks, but they're not face decks, I think is the difference. They're not proper smork decks like the Bluegill Warrior, Wolf Rider Hunter decks of old.
Those were the days. Those were the days. But I mean, even just as recent as Pirate Warrior, right? Pirate Warrior could play the board game a little bit, but it switched to the face plan much faster than Rogue or Zoo Warlock do nowadays, whereas they still play primarily on the board. There's some charge minions in the Zoo, there's a Leroy in the Rogue, but really you're still playing that board-centric game plan. So it really is interesting to me to see how the aggressive meta has evolved over time. I'm excited to see, especially since the new expansion is dropping on the 7th. Will we be getting new aggressive tools, or will the meta still be focused primarily on tempo and control decks?
It's interesting because looking at the cards we've seen so far, it seems most of the aggressive options are kind of taken by Warlock. We see some very powerful self-damaging minions in the Kobold Librarian and some other horrible demon that I can't even remember the name of. There is a 2/4 for 2 mana, very aggressively statted minions that allow for complete early board game dominance. But again, it'll be interesting to see, does it even make it into the 2 mana card? Does it make it into Zoo decks with the power of Keleseth at the moment?
I mean, they look incredible on paper, but is it stronger than the high roll potential of getting Keleseth onto? Is it enough, really? And I personally am waiting for Hunter to come back into the meta, but we'll have to see if Crushing Walls is enough to influence that. I think we all kind of know the answer to that one.
I think probably not. The Spellstone looks good, though, for me.
It does.
A lot of wolves.
Wolves. Yeah, the potential to summon 4 3/3 wolves for 5 mana. There have been some really insane cards teased very recently. I think we're going to be getting the final dump very soon in a stream with Day9 and Ben Brode. So I'm looking forward to that, even though we will be playing in this meta for the duration of the tournament. But we are ready to get into game. It is going to be the Warlock from Mitsuhide up against the Warrior from Lovely Chook.
So I have to say, given Mitsuhide's playstyle in this tournament, and I know he's played a lot of these decks that we keep talking about, the tempo-based mid-range decks, I like his chances here. I think they've got a good list to do it with. They run double Vicious Fledgling, which now that Warax is all but never seen in these Taunt Warrior decks.
So bad, man.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to throw down something on turn 3 and demand an answer. It has to be Blood Razor on the next turn, as, I mean, Mitsuhide gets the best legendary to get at the start of the game, and the worst legendary to get at the start of the game. I'm
experiencing a roller coaster of emotions with this hand. I think all in all, you're happy.
I think you would rather get both of them than none of them, but that's an interesting question to pose to the pros, because the biggest benefit of Keleseth is pulling out patches from your deck as a buffed card. It's just the most ridiculous tempo swing. It's beyond anything that should be allowed in Hearthstone. And yet, when you draw patches, you still have a buff to everything in your deck, but it's quite slow. I think in this particular matchup, you'd definitely rather have it this way, where you draw both, because it's going to scale into the late game. You need to hit things like 5/6 Cairns, 6/6 Scalebanes, stuff like that. Oh, actually, it's Zoo, so Scalebanes probably wouldn't be in there. But, you know, buffed up minions that allow you to pressure the taunts.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you hit a Saronite Chain Gang, suddenly your Saronites are 3/4s. Lovely Chook tries to play Blood Razor to clear off one. Now it doesn't do the job. So the interactions do tend to favor the Zoo once the minions have been buffed. At the very least, they make the removal a little bit more awkward for the warrior.
And so Mitsuhide is here taking a very slow line of play, which I think is the right way to go about it, because obviously he had the potential to completely fill out his mana curve. It's better just to keep tapping. He's going to have to find some extra value, given that he's found patches in the early game, make up for that deficit of cards, because he obviously could have pulled that from his deck and had another minion in hand. So I like this line of play, taking it a little bit slower, because he's looking to push his opponent out of the game by ridiculous power turns on turns 5, 6, 7 maybe, if he can pick up Cairn or another 3-drop here.
This is shaping up to be quite scary. And Lovely Chook just doesn't have the tools to deal with it right now. And Mitsu can preserve his board. The question is, how aggressive does he want to be with preserving this board?
Yeah, he needs to be careful. I think the main thing he's going to be worrying about here is Blood Razor. Although at the same time, maybe it would have just come out with a coin last time, because he will obviously know that Lovely Chook still has the coin in hand, and it would have been pretty good against Mitsuhide's board. But, you know, he'll probably be leaving the Tar Creep up here, because Soulfire doesn't quite trade perfectly unless you go for the patches, and you really want to play the Councilman on this turn. So I expect to see something like Councilman Firefly just load up onto the board and pray there's no kind of a whirlwind effect in combination with the rest of your cards. But, I mean, hey, we see a much more aggressive line of play here from Mitsuhide. He's tapped and drawn his cards, and now he's going on the offensive, taking out everything his opponent's got as he discards the best minion in his hand.
Perfect.
For him. The worst minion in his hand.
Yeah, this is what I was initially thinking. And I do like getting the Councilman out early, because it is the most threatening minion that you could develop this turn, and then maybe you just find a good trade into the Tar Creeper over the next couple of turns.
Yeah.
But this is the most aggressive board presence right now, and Mitsuhide describes himself as an aggressive player. This is a lot for the warrior to deal with, especially now that Mitsuhide can get a guaranteed read that there is no Blood Razor here.
And I have to be honest, I'm still not 100% on the play last time from Mitsuhide, because I think going for the Councilman into Firefly sets up perfectly for the Doomguard to take out the Tar Creeper on the following turn. But this has worked out perfectly for him, because once again, the Bone Mare dodges the bullet and has not been discarded. So we can keep on tapping on the next turn, play whatever he gets off the top, just vomit it onto the board, and then turn 7, Whirlwind Slam that Bone Mare, and hopefully just kill your opponent on the spot.
Lovely Chook doesn't have Brawl, doesn't have Whirlwind or Ghoul plus Fishes. Oh wait, he does have Ghoul plus Fishes. Never mind.
He doesn't have Curator. He doesn't have Acolyte of Pain. He doesn't have
Dirty Rat.
Oh, wait a second. He does. Our mistake.
Oh. Things look significantly better now, don't they?
They do indeed. It's not the worst for Mitsuhide, though. Very often a Ravaging Ghoul fishes on turn 5 to clear off your whole board, essentially, would just close out the game. But that's far from the case for Mitsuhide. He's got the Keleseth buff on his minions. He's got Bone Mare on the next turn. And none of the really powerful plays going into the next few turns, like Rat into Brawl, are quite available for Lovely Chook. So it's still going to be a lot of pressure coming down for Mitsu.
Yeah, and he's just taking the trade here with the Doomguard. Sitting at 1 health, it's too weak to other Whirlwind effects, and you don't want the Flame Imp to get killed as well. So gonna have to sacrifice 5 points of damage to ensure that you get to keep around a minion on board for the Bone Mare, but the Dirty Rat is gonna bring it out. You miss that +4/+4 buff, but you do get the free 5/5 now.
That's actually kind of a sick play from Lovely Chook, because okay, your opponent has a card in hand, and they tap and play 2 1-drops, overplaying it. What is that card? It's either Blood Reaver Gul'dan, in which case your Rat pulls nothing and you're happy. And the next biggest card in the Zoo deck is just Bone Mare. I think anything else would have just been played on that last turn. If it's Cairn or the Despicable Dreadlord, anything like that.
Second
you just,
Doomguard for sure.
Exactly. You just throw it down. So I think he had a pretty good read on the chance that that was just a Bone Mare.
Either it's Bone Mare or it's a spell or Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Exactly.
Right.
So either you pull out a great minion for you and deny the battle cry, or you pull nothing, which is also great.
This is kind of awkward now, though, because Mitsuhide needs to put both the Bone Mare and the Acaris Veteran into the Dirty Rat. You can also put the Flame Imp and the Acaris Veteran in if you want to keep your Bone Mare out of range of, you know, Blood Razor plus attack or second fishes, for instance.
It's a very tough turn for Mitsu. He just, you know, he can't play around everything in this scenario, but he's trying to figure out how do I most effectively play around the most amount of things. So he's obviously most afraid of something like Brawl or Blood Razor into Sleep with the Fishes, and I think he's doing a pretty good way of playing around all of those, because without a Whirlwind effect, Sleep with the Fishes isn't that good here. And if just a Whirlwind effect on its own comes down, it's good because cards are drawn, but most of the pressure is left on the board.
Yeah, and he can kind of maybe make a little read that it's less likely that Sleep with the Fishes is in hand because Lovely Chook played the first copy already. So he's probably not as worried about that. I would think that Brawl is heavy on his mind, but when he doesn't see it here, then he can definitively know it's not in hand, at least for now.
Right, yeah, I think that's definitely true. You would throw down the Brawl, I think, in an instant here, just because this is far and away the most threatening board you're going to see for a good while. And you still have that second one to hopefully find in time for a Blood Reaver Gul'dan, because that is most certainly what Mitsu is on the lookout for as he heads towards turn 10. There are some good secondary options that he could hope to hit, like Ken, another Bone Mare, another Doomguard, Despicable Dreadlord, stuff to beef up his Blood Reaver Gul'dan once he finds it, but for the most part he is all in on finding that card.
Well, there's Brawl. There's a really nice Slam Fishes turn.
Yeah.
And suddenly, things are looking a lot worse for Mitsuhide.
Oh, he even gets the combo of Cornered Sentry into Brawl.
Yeah.
As I remember that Patches has not been drawn, so I'm not going to make a fool out of myself by saying he gets the double buff. That would be stupid.
You know, crazier things have happened than us saying that.
Crazy things have happened than casters making mistakes. Yeah, God forbid.
Once in a blue moon. We're just human.
And now, Lovely Chook could just let it rip straight away with Cornered Sentry into Brawl. He is then likely to have something good survive, because obviously the Sentry or any other Raptors surviving is fantastic. And even then, anything other than the Councilman surviving is fine in that scenario. So I kind of like it here. But at the same time, you do need to be worried about how am I losing this game if you go for that. And Blood Reaver Gul'dan is basically that way. So maybe he's going to save that combo for when Blood Reaver comes down if it's gotten off the top. And instead just load up on taunts this turn.
If the Councilman lives, you're potentially taking a lot of damage on the backswing. If Bone Mare comes off the top or second Doomguard, then things would be looking very bad for Lovely Chook. So he does look like he doesn't want to risk it. I think I would have risked it, but I probably would have been very punished. So this is definitely the safer play.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's kind of the safer play, but it's also kind of the riskier play, because if something like the Doomguard comes off the top now, that's quite a lot of damage that's being pushed towards your face. But like you say, if it's kind of less risky in a way, because if the Blood Reaver Gul'dan is found, then you can play around that. It's very interesting this turn indeed.
Now Mitsu is going to be forced to put all of his resources on the board. So this is setting up for another phenomenal Brawl turn from Lovely Chook. And last turn could also just be seen as telegraphing to Mitsuhide that you don't have it. Yeah. So Mitsuhide putting more resources on the board, expending more resources into that Brawl. Now the Brawl gets that much more value.
At the same time, though, while last turn it was, I believe, 4 out of 7 good outcomes, now it's only 3 out of 9 good outcomes. So there's a lot more good stuff that can survive from Mitsuhide, but that's because he's developed so much more stuff into the Brawl. As the Captain survives, that's a really good outcome, and therefore I think we'll see the Execute to play around Bone Mare off the top, of which there are 2 chances because of the tap.
Yeah, 100%. And now Blood Reaver Gul'dan is playable for Mitsuhide. Let that Soulfire rip. If you find Doomguard here, that's game!
Oh my god, he gets Doomguard for lethal. Unbelievable. I mean,
Beautiful.
we could hear the players shouting even through our soundproof headsets, so I assumed whatever card came off the top had to be pretty good, and it is the perfect sequence of cards to deliver lethal for Mitsuhide. He takes an incredible matchup. He brought that to counter the Quest Warrior, or was the Quest Warrior was brought to counter
No,
him.
he brought this to counter the Warrior.
He brought this to counter the Quest Warrior, which is perfect because if you lose a counter matchup, those are the series that are next to impossible to win. You have to get incredible sweeps on the other side. So for Mitsu, this is the real end of his redemption. He lost a whole bunch of games at the start of the tournament, but now he is being the carry of his team.
Man, things were looking bad. I actually really liked how Lovely Chook played that one. There were a couple of turns that he could have done maybe slightly differently, and perhaps over the course of the game he could have taken a little bit less damage. It'd have to be something that you go back and double check once again, but I got the feeling that it was pretty well played by him. The Blood River Gul'dan or the Soulfire and Doomguard outs for Mitsuhide just got it done, and now it's going to be Dog.
我觉得四狗平时太谦虚了，他打牌打得那么好，然后又很低调，在那个中欧对抗赛上可惜差一点点，不然就拿冠军了。
他比较喜欢玩一些就是偏进攻型的卡组嘛，然后包括什么之前的海盗战，然后一些包括现在的青羽者，就反正类似于这种套牌嘛，就玩的比较多。
我觉得四狗的快攻是在国内数一数二的，可能就是跟那个鸠摩智不相上下吧。
刚刚洛基也说到，四狗毕竟是和鸠摩智一个水平的男人，这次比赛又没有鸠摩智，那么感觉就差不多稳了呀，对吧？基本，
对的，
毕竟他是鸠摩智又不参赛，那就没有敌人了。
四狗平常喜欢看一些就是球赛吧，虽然我也就是看不懂嘛，但是他就是对那个足球队，感觉每个队伍都特别了解吧。
他反正也属于那种夜猫子嘛，反正晚睡晚起，可能白天睡觉，晚上出来活动，有时候晚上也不知道去哪活动，夜不归宿也经常。大概反正我也不知道干嘛去了，反正就经常晚上出去玩了。
I feel like I've seen Dog's dating profile. I know so much about him now. He's a night person. He likes aggressive decks. He's scared of Omega Zero, but fortunately Omega Zero is actually casting this tournament instead of playing. So Lucky Future seems to think that there is nobody to stop Dog's reign of Hearthstone terror. He's going to be bringing out the Shaman to try and get Mitsuhide out of the hot seat. And he needs to get 2 in a row now for his team.
I'm sure Omega Zero will be completely impartial over at the Chinese casting desk, hoping that this player who claims to be on par with him tries to take it over Mitsuhide. This is not an especially favorable matchup for the Shaman, to be honest. You can obviously shut down the early pushes for board with cards like Jade Claw's Maelstrom Portal, as they both turn up in the starting hand for Dog. This is a great way to get things going, obviously. But as we scale into the later stages of the game, unless Bloodlust, Thrall, Deathseer, Doppel Evolve, or Flame Tongue Totem can be picked up, things like that. There's so many weak minions in the Shaman deck that can't translate into delivering lethal against the powerful Zoo deck.
Yeah, the mid to late game just isn't anywhere near as strong as the mid to late game from the Zoo. The early game isn't as strong as the Zoo. The thing it does have going for it is stronger AoE potential. So that Devolve Maelstrom Portal, the Jade Claws for some value from that weapon. That's how Dog is going to need to get his edge in this game. And he has found a couple of those resources in the mulligan.
He has indeed, and he makes the only play here that allows him to play around coin into Vicious Fledgling. He probably isn't thinking about that with this line of play. He's just thinking, hey, I'll bring something down to 1, finish it off with Maelstrom Portal on the following turn. But on the next turn, if coin into Vicious Fledgling comes down for Mitsuhide, which it very well could do, the only thing he's losing, that he is dying to there, is Maelstrom Portal or Flame Tongue. And it was a full mulligan, so he probably isn't expecting that good of a starting hand from his opponent. But it's there.
Yeah, this could be Maelstrom Portal or a Patches pull off of a Pirate. There's a Stonehill in the deck for Dog. Have we seen this Shaman deck before from them? We have not.
No, you're right, we haven't. This is the first time we're getting a look at it, and it seems to be fairly standard from what we're seeing so far. We've seen from Team Celestial themselves Their Shaman deck seems to be... Oh no, I'm mistaken. Team Celestial have Baiza's Shaman deck. We've seen Hungry Crabs in a couple of the Shaman decks to try and counteract Murloc Paladin. But this seems to be a little bit more standard from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, maybe a little bit heavier with that Stonehill Defender in the deck still that can be removed and replaced with cards like a Locket Crawler or like Hungry Crab, depending on what you are trying to counter here. The Flame Tongue Totem off the top is actually great because now the Blood Imp goes in. You can play that Primal Fin Totem down. And Dog has managed to keep a lead here in the early turns.
This is fantastic. This is where you start pulling ahead as the Shaman, because without reactive cards in the Warlock's arsenal, they can't take out preemptively this Flame Tongue. So they have to keep throwing stuff down as lambs to the slaughter, as this Flame Tongue will machine gun down, firing off Murlocs at all of the minions coming down from Mitsuhide. It's just not going to be there for the next few turns.
But Mitsu did pick up the Keleseth. He's got Despicable Dreadlords in hand. If I were Dog, I would have been very tempted to go with Saronite Evolve this turn.
Ooh, interesting.
Keep pressing that advantage. I'd kill off the Keleseth, and a couple of 5-drops can do you a lot of good, especially going into a powerful Doomguard turn from Mitsuhide.
Yeah, that's true. I think I disagree overall. I think the Flame Tongue Totem in play at the moment is too strong to evolve it at the moment. You want to cash out the value that you can with that, and then if it eventually dies off, then you follow up with Chain Gang into evolve. That's like a nice second wave if anything goes wrong. But it's a very interesting point and could definitely have been taken.
Said it was tempting.
It was very tempting.
Very tempting. The
definitely
Jade Lightning off the top is phenomenal here as well. Dog has had a great start, exactly what he needed to combat this opener from Mitsuhide. It's not a clean trade with the Jade Lightning. You would have to give up an additional minion on the board, and you kind of want to keep both of them around.
I think in this scenario, you just kind of put your hand over the Flame Tongue Totem in front of your face, pretend it's not there, and then all of a sudden, hey, that's a perfect trade with the Stonehill Defender. That's perfect. Just pretend that's not there, and Dog is feeling great as he accepts he's going for overkill by 2, but it's definitely worth it as Cora is trying to perfectly line her fingers up in front of the Flame Tongue Totem.
I got it.
I'm proud
You're
of you.
absolutely right. That Stonehill Defender normally only has 1 attack.
That's kind of like the streams where players put a piece of card over
Yeah, so
all
they
the
can't get
things.
stream snipes.
Yeah, exactly. Or just everything that isn't the opponent's face and then their side of the board. So the only place they can click is their opponent's face for the true discerning smart gamers over there.
Saronite Evolve, Galaka this patches.
Ooh.
Ooh, this is a phenomenal evolve. Blood Queen, Lanathel, Wickerflame, Burn Bristle.
Yeah, it's not bad actually.
Nemsy Necrofizzle makes an appearance. This is great.
Yeah, to be honest, the Blood Queen, I thought it was really bad at first, but I actually don't hate it. Just any high health minion that allows you to get top deck, that will stick around for ages, that means top deck of Bloodlust at any point is fantastic. Top deck of Flame Tongue Totem is really nice.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff that allows you to capitalize on the attack buffs that Shaman has.
Yeah, you're not so much looking for lifesteal value here, as Dog is still at 26, but any resilient minion, like, it's not a bomb squad.
Yeah, it's
so
not a bomb
I'm
squad.
happy about it.
Yeah, I think you'd rather have the high vanilla stats like Draconid Operative or something like that in the perfect scenario. But it's really, as you said, not bad, especially because there's actually quite a lot of pressure coming down towards Mitsuhide. Dog has pushed a good amount of pressure in the early stages of the game. But going forward, his hand is not too strong. He is going to be very sad that he picked this Primordial Drake earlier on. Maybe he was just expecting to fall behind, and it's gone way better for him than he anticipated.
Well, he is still ahead. The Jade Lightning as well is a phenomenal pickup, 3/6.
13 damage?
Yeah. With the Devolve.
Is that one-off lethal?
If Devolve comes down and nothing is a taunt, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14.
Wow.
1 off lethal.
Oh. Can you go for that? Are you afraid of more taunts? There's quite a few in the deck for Zoo.
I don't know that you want to devolve the Bone Mare into a 6-drop is the thing. Like, you have a pretty clean kill on the Dreadlord with Blood Queen.
Okay. I've got to be honest. I was looking very quickly at a devolve there, because giving your opponent a random 4-drop is a lot better than what's on board there. Yeah, I guess this is okay though, because you are saving that devolve for any other stuff that can go terribly wrong, like Chain Gang or second Bone Mare.
Is this Malkazar Doomguard? Or do you feel like you can put up Sarnite Chain Gang and be safe?
Man, you are playing with fire with that play, but I love it.
There's a lot of 3 mana taunt minions. We see 2 of them on the board for Dog right now.
Yeah.
But Doomguard itself just lets you clear off the Ironfur Grizzly and the Wickerflame Burn Bristle. You're not dead on board,
He
but
has
you're
to
dead
be afraid
to
of
a
devolve.
lot.
Yeah. Mitsu has to be afraid of devolve, but maybe he's more afraid of burst from hand.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's Devolve on one hand,
Yeah.
or Flame Tongue Totem, Jade Claws, Bloodlust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you
gotta
basically
go with
die
this.
to Bloodlust either way. Maybe that's not... yeah, you would die to Bloodlust either way. But the thing is as well, you've seen 1 Jade Claws and 2 Jade Lightnings, which is a lot of the damage already taken out. You've also seen 1 Flame Tongue Totem, so it kind of works out about evenly. As Dog does end up getting no
That's just
taunts
game.
off of the Devolve. Mitsuhide does end up taking the loss. It is up to 2-2. Only the Shaman deck in between Celestial and taking another victory, bringing them up to 4-2. But for Lucky Future, they just need 1 more win with this Token Shaman to bring them up to 3-3 and still be in with a shot at getting to the upper bracket as we enter the knockouts.
Okay, so Celestial now has the opportunity to counter this Shaman, and it is going to be Tom up against this Shaman deck from Dog. If Celestial wins here, they're guaranteed a spot in the upper bracket. If Lucky Future wins, they need to win again tomorrow, but it's still possible that they get that spot instead.
Man, what are they going to go for? The Rogue isn't particularly favorable, I would think. The Quest Mage, if it can stall for long enough, it's pretty good. I feel like it's maybe not quite as favorable as the kind of control Gunther mages that we've seen in the past that run the Volcanic Potion in combination with Alexstrasza to kill off your opponent, because the Shaman doesn't run any healing. But I'm just going to be so interested in what Tom picks here as the last game.
We haven't seen the Warrior from Celestial yet.
That's true. Maybe a Taunt
It is
Warrior.
possible that they could bring it out here if it is a Taunt Warrior. Yeah, that would be my thinking.
And we don't see any
What's it gonna
cards
be?
revealed, so I think it is going to be that Warrior. That's the only deck that we haven't seen revealed. No idea what it could be, as it
Yep,
is
it's the
the
Warrior.
Warrior for Tom. Fantastic prediction, Cora. What are you expecting to see here?
I would expect the deck that we've seen the most has been Taunt Warrior. But no, Doomsayer double shield block. Are we playing full Dead Man's Hand fatigue here?
Surely not.
Oh dear, it could be an Azoth Warrior, I suppose, just with a Doomsayer tech. Either way, it's going to have the same removal options as any other Control Warrior build. Whirlwinds plus Sleep with the Fishes, slams, executes, brawls, the whole 9 yards.
And Dog just threw away Doppelgangster with Evolve in hand. To be honest, I just don't see how that can be correct. If your opponent is countering you with a Warrior deck, you know that it's not going to be Pirate Warrior, because there have been literally none this whole tournament, and it's not a particularly good matchup even then. It has to be some kind of a N'Zoth or, you know, Fatigue or Taunt Warrior.
Did he keep the Evolve?
He kept the Evolve and threw away the Doppelgangster. That seems absolutely absurd. It's like, if you were going to do it one way, you'd keep the Doppelgangster and throw away the Devolve, because you have Thrall Deathseer in hand, so you can go coin Doppel into Thrall. That might be a mistake. I don't know if I maybe saw it wrong, but that is 100% not the way I would play this matchup.
I would either keep both or throw both.
Exactly.
And I'm fine with either. But this hedge your bets just to keep an Evolve
I'm not
play,
even fine
that's
with
a
either.
bit unusual. You're not even fine
No,
with either?
you keep
I'm fine
Doppel
with
Evolve.
either.
It's nuts. It's such a good combo. He gets it back anyway, so it doesn't matter, obviously.
All right, well, the Doomsayer's going to proc.
Yeah.
Tom will have the Acolyte of Pain to come down after it. Either way you look at it, Tom's had a very nice start this game.
Yeah, he has indeed, especially as Dog won't even have the ability to throw down Jade Lightning onto this Acolyte, so it is going to be drawing at least 2 cards when combined with Slam or Whirlwind on one of the following turns.
Man, I'm really curious to what this warrior deck is. We have not seen any indication
True.
of if it's a Dead Man's Hand fatigue variant or if it's a N'Zoth warrior yet.
I mean,
Could still be either.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen pure fatigue so far in this tournament. We see a Dead Man's Hand.
Checking the first box.
That's Uno.
The second box is second Dead Man's Hand. Okay, there's
You might.
no more boxes.
Yeah, I want to look at the screen there, as it is the N'Zoth warrior. Very clearly, as you would not run that in the fatigue variant.
Yeah.
This is still a nice matchup, and it's a fantastic start to get things going for Tom. Now, all he needs to find is things like Blood Razor, Sleep with the Fishes, making sure he keeps his draw high with something like a Battle Rage could be fantastic as well.
Yeah, and you can actually, I suppose if your dog, get a decent read on what Tom's got in hand, because Tom used that Whirlwind just for a cycle this turn when he didn't actually need it to kill off the Mana Tide Totem. But Tom clearly is digging for additional cards from deck. He's not happy with what he's got so far.
Yeah, we can see he's running 2 in this deck as well, which is not, I'm not going to say it's not standard, but it's not unanimous.
Conventional.
Yeah, exactly. You very often see 1 in the N'Zoth warrior decks, as 1 feels like a really nice way to give yourself the highest chance possible of activating your Acolyte, as Dog throws down an extremely aggressive Whirlwind. This is so far from how I would play this matchup.
Well, the Evolve was kind of necessary early on to try and deny 2 additional draws off of the Acolyte of Pain.
I guess
But there's so much that Tom can have that would facilitate those draws anyway that I don't mind the Evolve, but especially now when you've got Doppelgangster in hand. I suppose you can go Doppelgangster into Thrall if you're feeling very, very lucky, and lucky future very well, maybe. But still, that is an earlier Evolve than we're used to.
It is indeed.
I didn't mind it, though.
And I've got to ask you, Cora, are you feeling hungry?
Am I hungry?
Because this is Breakfast Warrior. Look at that egg. As he then goes for... Okay, he's going for...
Okay, this is
Thrall
just...
Deathseer on 1 minion to upgrade it to a
This is a bit mental.
This is absurd. I haven't seen any play like this ever. He has Doppelgangster in hand, and he's thrown
Shield
away
Slam in this deck?
two of his Evolve effects.
Okay, so we're bringing back Devilsaur Eggs with N'Zoth.
Yep.
We're playing Shield Slam.
That's actually not that uncommon, I think. I think Fibonacci's been playing around with that one. But egg is nuts. I'll give you that one.
I have some questions, but you know what? Devilsaur Egg, Brawl. I answered my questions.
Put them together. Yep, it just makes sense.
2 great tastes that taste great together.
Brawling and then egging. Sounds like typical English
We don't
night
promote
out.
egging on the stream. It's very bad practice, even on Halloween.
And okay, so let's look at the way that this game is shaping, given the way that Dog is playing it. Clearly going very aggressive with his Evolve effects, and that's left him in a situation where he doesn't have powerful plays, particularly on this turn, because Doppel Evolve is definitely what he would be looking to go for here, but it does allow him Saronite Evolve. Maybe he's thinking, just getting out this effect from Thrall Deathseer as early as I can will give me the highest chance to win, as he picks up the worst possible 5-mana minion.
That
Poor lad.
is horrible.
But at the same time, it does have to die, or Dog can then upgrade it to a 6-drop. So it is kind of going to be at least a distraction for Tom. He's going to have to put a lot of resources into killing this off. But at the same time, this is still just the most mental game I've seen in a long time from Dog.
It just seems like Dog he's used his resources so liberally.
Yeah.
And against a control deck,
Yep.
which has ample amounts of removal,
Oh, yeah.
you need to go for a big board in one fell swoop, which is Doppelgangster Evolve or Doppelgangster into Thrall. I understood the early Evolve, trying to deny draw from the Acolyte. I didn't necessarily love it, but I got it.
Right.
But this has been a little bit strange.
This has been very strange indeed. It does allow him Doppelgangster into hero power. But if he just throw down Doppelgangster and then hope to go for Thrall Deathseer on the following turn, I'd have liked that more. I just don't see how he wins this game now. I think this is just a fundamental misunderstanding of the matchup from Dog, because it felt like he was trying to play really aggressive, but he didn't have the follow-up really at all. You needed to make a resilient board. That's how you win with this token charm, making a board that your opponent can't deal with, and then you go for Bloodlust.
Yeah, he had a much more mid-rangey start, but the Scourge Lord Garrosh is just... That just about wraps things up, doesn't it, here? Whole board's cleared. You're sitting at a pretty 33 life.
That is actually true. Dog should have upgraded the minion in the middle, because then if Tom wants to take them all out, he has to take more damage.
That's true.
So that's just a slight technical misplay. But I think that is far from the most egregious thing we've seen this game, to be honest.
Man, I'm always so hesitant to use words like egregious or to call games right from the start.
I think egregious is fair.
This has been weird. This is not how I would have gone about this matchup at all. And okay, and not even so much the evolve early on. I get it.
Yeah.
The Thrall Deathseer onto the 2-drop. That's what gets me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you can even just have a couple of 1-drops in your hand, a couple of totems on the board, save that up and go for Thrall that way.
Yeah.
But thralling one minion just seems really wasteful.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe he's playing 4D Hearthstone up in here, and we're just
we're stuck in 2017.
Exactly, and he's ushering
Although
into some new age.
the TV in the lunchroom did say 1980.
That's
so
true. Yeah. Maybe
it said it
we've
was
gone back in
January
time.
11th, 1980. And, I mean, we could be. My hair's pretty big today.
Yeah.
Hobart Grapple Hammer, anyone?
Ooh. That does what? It'll upgrade his Jade Claws?
Yes.
Which sucks, actually, as it turns out.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe
It
we've got
turns out,
something like
bad card.
maybe, I don't know, King Mosh there might have been able to do something. Rotface, Nazoth.
Rotface would have at least been fun.
Yeah.
Hobart is just not even fun.
To be honest, I just don't even know. Like, I don't think that Dog could do anything in this situation to win the game now. Because he's used the Evolve, even if he gets Doppelgangster off the top, he's only getting himself 1 6-drop as opposed to 3. Bloodlust does nothing this game. The 2 Maelstroms do nothing this game. Tom could just play... I mean, ping Nazoth right here as just the statted minion it gives without the battle drive.
It gives you Devil Sword.
And it's still... Oh, no,
Or the Devil Sword Egg.
Oh, no, it was...
It was devolved.
It was devolved.
No.
Yeah.
It gives you nothing. Hey, that's a buff Jade Claws right there. Hobart came through. Yeah, no spell damage available with the Thrall Deathseer hero power active. There's just...
Hey, he's back, baby.
It's like, hey, my airtime wasn't long enough.
Yeah,
Let's do this again.
I mean, I think this can just be a concede any time now from Dog. There is no chance of him winning this game.
No.
Just hero power every turn and pass from Tom could end up winning the game, I think, in this situation. There's no top deck that can win Dog the game because Brawl will just take out any big minion. Now that the Hatchling has died, it could just be Nazoth right here, but I guess maybe we'll see the Dead Man's Hand first. I don't know. It's going to have to be something incredible for Tom to lose this game.
You certainly don't mind shuffling a couple of Brawls and a Blood Razor into your deck. Sleep with the Fishes when your hero power is a Whirlwind every turn now. This is
the worst played game I've seen this tournament. I don't know what Dog was thinking this game.
I mean, is there Doppelgangster Evolve outs that get him out of this one?
Well, he has to get Doppelgangster and Evolve as the next 2 cards.
Yeah, and he needs to get 3 Boulder Fist Ogres,
Yep,
except
3
then there's
Cairns,
still Brawl.
something like that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, 3 Cairns.
3 Cairns.
And then you end up with 3 Banes, and then Tom Brawls again, and then you lose the game.
Well, no, you get 3 Banes, you upgrade one of them into... I don't know.
Felon, and then...
Swamp King Dread, something like that,
and then you still lose the game.
You still lose the game, that's exactly right. And now with the pickup of Battle Rage, I think, well, I mean, I was thinking maybe he saves it and tries to shuffle it in with Dead Man's Hand, but he doesn't even have to. As the Diamond Matriarch comes down, there's no Devolve available here for Dog. Yeah, okay, well, he finds
Hold
Doppel.
that, first of all.
Yeah, I think you do just hold that.
Hold the Doppel. You've got your thing from below. You need to really hope that Tom doesn't play Brawl in this deck. Oh yeah, and I guess Hobart only upgrades the attack of the weapon. He doesn't even give the weapon a full upgrade. So like, oh, there's Halloween. Okay, great. Good stuff.
Oh my god, so now not only has Dog wasted all the cards he had access to, he's now going to have his whole hand discarded as Celestial take the game. That was an unbelievably easy game for Tom. He had a good start to get things going, but that was an awful game from Dog, and he did end up losing it.